Hello. London is full of dark, mysterious corners, and we're starting our exploration to find some of the hidden places in London and to meet some of the unusual folk who live here right in the centre of the city, at a building which has got some surprises of its own. A very strange little room is this. In fact, yank a rope and it moves. This is a lift which can carry visitors to this building over 100 feet up to the top. The whole place creaks and groans with the sound of ancient machinery, but the structure is really a tribute to Victorian efficiency. It's operated by hydraulic power, and even though it's had to run continuously over the past 90 years, it's hardly ever broken down. Today, the place still provides a service to the people of London, and it's a tourist attraction too. It's big, mind you. Very big indeed. It's surprising what can be discovered if you peer behind the facade of London's well-known landmarks.
Anybody with long hair in my meeting, they can get out, because I don't want no fleas in it.
On the other side of the tower, there are folks on public display.
You take the East End here. We had the musicals over. Shut up! I can't get Cromwell to let you in. Get out of it.
You look like the ruins and Cromwell knocked about a bit.
You take the East End here. Now we haven't got that now.
This is Tower Hill, home of the soapbox orator, a marketplace for opinion, prejudice and propaganda, or simply a place where you can shout your mouth off.
And we don't want a woman in number 10. All right, I'll have an argument with you.
It's not very far from where Wat Tyler shouted his mouth off during the Peasants' Revolt in 1381 and lost his head for his trouble. Nowadays, a peasant can listen to a member of the House of Lords and shout rubbish if he wants.
Prejudice is the entire opposite of common sense.
Lord Soper, Britain's leading Methodist, has been standing on a soapbox at Tower Hill for 50 years, and he actually likes people to heckle because it improves his performance. On a small wharf side opposite Tower Bridge, Les Whale runs a tiny farm. On most days, he can be spotted clumping around in his special farming equipment. He's got 160,000 bees on a patch of ground hidden away beside the wharf. More than that, these are super bees which have astounded the beekeeping world. Is it safe to come in here, Les?
Yes, quite all right.
It won't bite me?
No.
What's that thing for?
This is the smoker to quieten them down a bit.
Keep puffing it, won't you?
Yes.
Now, you've got hives in Essex, right in the centre of the countryside, haven't you? Now, how do they compare with the bees right in the centre?
Nowhere near as good as this.
In the centre of London?
That's right.
Why is that, Les?
Well, we've got the tower, got the bomb sites, all around the tower gardens, around the moat there. There's a lovely lot of lime trees, elms and things like this that are giving pollen or nectar. I have done better here. We had, from these 6 hives, we had 320 pounds of honey.
And in Essex?
Oh, nowhere near.
Life in this part of London has been dominated since Roman times by the River Thames. It's the reason why the city was built in the first place. The communities who lived on the banks of the Thames always earned their living from the river. And in particular, 200 years ago, they made a lot of money from smuggling. Now, nautical vagabonds used to bring their contraband tobacco, brandy and opium through secret passageways to bawdy hostelries not far from the Tower Bridge. And they also like to favour a place like this. This is the Hoop and Grapes, which at 400 years old is the oldest pub right in the city's centre. Now sadly, the Hoop and Grapes has lost a lot of its character because in these days it's stuck on a relief road between new developments and office blocks. The days of the pirates and the smugglers have long since gone. The time of the nautical yob has departed, but that doesn't detract from the interest in the pub itself. This is Wally, an ex-merchant seaman whose jib is cut to prove it. He's one of the last of the character buskers of London and takes his parrot Smarty everywhere to help to attract the crowd.
Well, he don't bite you.
Does he bite Wally?
He bites everybody except me.
Really?
Yeah, he's a good old boy.
He's a lovely parrot. You're one of the last of the old-time buskers in this country, aren't you?
Yeah, I think I am the last
How long
one.
have you been busking?
Oh, about 12 years.
Have you?
Since I left the merchant navy.
And you're a genuine hurdy-gurdy man, is that right?
No, not a hurdy-gurdy, I mean an organ grinder. The hurdy-gurdy is those things they have in Holland, you know, the big things.
I suppose the old characters of London, you know, they're all sort of on their way out now. You don't meet many in pubs, do you, and that sort of thing?
I can show you a character right now.
Can you?
That's my missus.
Do you often go around with the
Oh,
python?
yes, I take him everywhere.
Why is that?
Well, he's, I mean, people take their dogs or their horses, whatever. I take my snake.
You carry him around everywhere with you?
Everywhere, yeah.
Do you mind me asking if he's dangerous at all?
Potentially, yes. But if you're nice to him, he's nice to you.
Yeah. How are you nice to a snake?
Well, do you want me to show you?
Yeah. No.
No?
Well, what are you going to do?
I'm going to put him around your neck.
Oh, no, come on.
Oh, come on, come on.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I've got the antidote, you're
Well,
all right.
they bite, don't they? Do they bite?
Well, they have been known to, shall we say. Just that way. That way.
It's gripping me around the neck, Margaret.
Is he gripping very
Margaret,
tight?
it's gripping... How do pythons kill their prey, Margaret?
They squeeze them to death.
Do they? When did he last eat? Well, when did he last eat?
About 6 weeks ago.
So he's hungry?
He's very hungry.
And they squeeze their prey to... Yeah. Do you use this, He's squeezing tighter. He's now licking me as well.
Would you like me to disentangle you?
Margaret, are you sure that...
Yeah, it's fine.
Margaret!
I mean... I can quite easily... I mean, if you just lift your arm up that way, we can... There you are.
Margaret, you still got a little bit round.
It's as simple as that.
Beneath an arch near Liverpool Street Station lies a walled city within a city, which few people ever see. This entire complex is really a gigantic warehouse built in 1768 for the East India Company. They stored furs, silks, spices and opium here from Asia. Soon it'll be sold for development, and when that happens, a unique group of people will move to other premises. But behind these gloomy walls lie exotic luxuries from the Orient and the men who buy and sell them. This warehouse is the centre for the Oriental carpet trade throughout the world. Carpets worth £35 million pass through here each year, and the business is in the hands of a select few Persian families. These dealers were born in Britain, but the trade is conducted in Persian. You're all from the same place, aren't you, basically, in Persia, is that right?
Well, the majority of the merchants here all originate from one town in northeast Persia, from Mashhad. So there's a Jewish merchanting community that used to be there.
Yeah. And you're all interrelated with each other? Or?
Very much so, and sometimes that makes difficulties in business too.
Now, there is a way of selling in the traditional way of selling in Persian, isn't there? Can somebody show me how you do that?
If you don't sell, he will say,
I can't. This building is dedicated to a determination by Edwardian Londoners to preserve their own environment. It was built in 1903 with permission from the Duke of Westminster. It was constructed in the very finest stone and laid out here with smart Italian gardens, which stood at this spot until the Second World War. Now, the entire thing cost in those days an astronomical £90,000. However, all it is a very humble electricity substation. They don't seem to care much about blending buildings into the environment nowadays.
Look what they done to my song.
Welcome to the Elephant and Castle, named after an inn built in 1760. The planners built this lot 10 years ago to improve the traffic flow and to house office workers. Well, they're housed all right in these gigantic blocks, but the character of this landmark south of the river has gone for good. Mind you, not far away you can still do the Lambeth Walk in a traditional knees-up pub. This is the Raven and Sun, and this is Sam the Gent. Gentleman Sam is Cockney London's aristocrat of the honky-tonk piano. He spends half his life in downtown pubs banging out the old tunes, and the rest of the time he's trotting around the world publicising Britain. Whenever the tourist boards want to promote London abroad, they send for Sam the Gent, and he's played the Lambeth Walk in Tokyo, New York and all over Europe. Sam, how did you get this name, Sam the Gent, in the first place?
Well, I am a gent, Bernard.
What's your reaction when you go abroad, you know, when you play this sort of honky-tonk stuff?
But most of these people, the Dutch, the Mexicans and the Americans, you know, they know our songs better than we know them.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But I mean, you know, pub audiences, especially in London, the greatest people, these people here, great people. You can't go wrong with them.
Give me another tune, Sam.
Well, I think the best tune we can play is that what everybody knows.
The snag with London is that in the aggravation of moving about, you tend to take things for granted. How many people who cross Westminster Bridge each day really notice a magnificent lion standing outside the GLC headquarters at County Hall? It was made from code stone. That's an artificial stone and has superb weathering qualities. We'd like to use it today for outdoor monuments, but we can't. The Codestone factory closed down in 1840, and the formula, which was a closely guarded secret, was lost. And in spite of all our modern technology, no one today can discover how to make it. They use Codestone for all kinds of things, like this tombstone, for example, standing in the graveyard of St. Mary's Church across the Lambeth Bridge south of the river. Now, underneath here lie the mortal remains of one William Bligh, Vice Admiral of the Blue, the celebrated navigator, who bravely fought the battles of his country and died, according to this, beloved, respected and lamented. Unless, of course, you happen to have sailed with him on board the good ship Bounty. A 1929 converted Rolls-Royce ambulance is the stately conveyance which carries around the iron side of Battersea. Christopher Dockerer Jones, a lawyer, was paralysed by polio 10 years ago. He can't move his arms or legs or even breathe on his own, and everywhere he goes an electric respiratory unit must go with him to pump air to his lungs. Yet since he was crippled, he's built up a thriving legal practice. He's in the property business too, and providing he's got his ambulance to get about in, he leads an active life.
Well, really, I suppose I'm trying to prove something. Most people get the idea that people in wheelchairs or people who are incapacitated are probably slightly mentally deficient as well. And the idea is to prove that you don't have to be a loser to be necessarily to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
I think under these circumstances one possibly has to be more active than an able-bodied person.
How do you mean?
Well, you've got to earn a lot of money to keep out of hospital and to maintain any standard, any decent standard of living.
So you found yourself having to work harder, have you?
Precisely, that's it.
Off a busy main road in Battersea lies a ramshackle backyard stuck beneath a railway line. It's hardly the setting for a cultural revival, but that's what's going on in a dingy room inside a converted warehouse. Soon it's hoped an audience will come here and be entertained by the voice of one of the world's top stars.
Miss Marlene Dietrich.
Anything but love, babe, that's the only thing I've plenty of.
Chris, can you hold it?
Why?
It must be the left hand, not the right.
Charles Hamilton and Christopher Graham are opening a puppet theatre for adults. That is, they intend to stage performances by miniature Marlene Dietrichs and other international stars. They design, make and operate all the puppets themselves, and this is an attempt to revive a lost art. Now they're hoping that enough people will come here to prove that there's still a demand for this ancient form of entertainment. And as one ambition is to stage the whole of Wagner's Ring cycle, which takes 14 hours, it'll prove it all right if anyone sits through that. London is a city of arches, mainly because it's crisscrossed by a vast network of Victorian design railway lines. They built the rails on viaducts and stuck arches underneath. Well, Londoners soon discovered that there's a lot you can do with an arch. It not only holds things up, people have lived in them, opened businesses or shops inside them. In 1926, Flanagan and Allen immortalised them, and doing something today with arches is still going on. This is the London Dungeon, in disused wine cellars underneath the arches of the Southern Region Railway line at Bermondsey. It cost £100,000 to build, and it's an exhibition which is totally devoted to the seamy, violent and macabre side of British history. Dedicated to the good old days of plague, persecution and persuasion, this black museum of horrors sets out deliberately to make your flesh creep. It's attracting large crowds, including parties of school kids. Some of them hang around for hours. Without stretching the point too much, attendants are always on hand to stop courting couples making a convenience of the place. The owners say it's escapism. Someone weighed down with the burdens of modern living can be cheered up with the knowledge of what our ancestors were really like. Rotten. Mind you, it'll come as no surprise to men that the inspiration for all this actually came from a woman. So what on earth made you build an exhibition like this, Annabelle?
Well, it was all my children's idea, and they suggested it, and I thought, what fun, so I did it.
What made them suggest a thing like this?
Well, we went on a trip to the tower ages ago, 3 years ago, and they loved it, but they said it would be so much more fun to have bodies and torture instruments on view.
The Tower of London?
The Tower of London,
Nice kids you've got, haven't you, really?
Yeah, it's very normal.
Tell me, what is you think that's going to appeal to people to come to see an exhibition like this, all about burning and torture and horror and all that?
I think it's great fun.
It's a bit gruesome, isn't it?
Yes.
Mind you, while fangs aren't quite what they used to be, neither is London since the planners knocked the city about. But here and there you can still bump into some peculiarity which can never change, simply because something happened many years ago which must continue today. This is Savoy Place beside the Thames Embankment, and 40 years ago it was the scene of one of the most vicious battles ever fought by the Post Office. They wanted to build a telephone box here, but the land happened to be owned by the Institute of Electrical Engineers, who just so happened to have painted their railings green. So for 2 years, the Post Office fought against a certain condition. But in 1928, they gave in, and the result was, and is today, the only green telephone box in London. In 1825, King George IV resided in this eminent townhouse with its 600 rooms set in over 40 acres of prime London parkland. To commemorate the battles of Trafalgar and Waterloo, the King ordered that a gigantic gateway be constructed in front of the palace. By the time Queen Victoria came to the throne, according to legend, she decided that the royal state coach wouldn't go through the arch of the gateway. "Move it," said the Queen, so they did. And if you want to know how far they moved it, well, I'll show you. Well, as a matter of fact, they moved it to here. That famous gateway is Marble Arch. It was dismantled, brick by brick, and moved here a mile away from the palace, simply because of the whim of a queen. What a hodgepodge the Oxford Street area is. The street itself is the best-known shopping centre in the world. It's built above one of the lost rivers of London, the Tyburn, which gave its name to the gallows where Marble Arch stands today. Another thing of interest here is what stares at you from the store windows. It's not the clothes on display, but what they're displayed on. The revolution, which began in swinging London during the 1960s, changed the appearance of the shop windows in British high streets. It came to Britain in the shape of Adele Rootstein, a South African-born ex-window dresser. Now, she wanted women who were out shopping to identify with the mannequins displaying the clothes. So she based them upon real famous people, the trendsetters in fashion, show business, and the arts. And in doing that, Adele became the queen of the mannequin market. The trendsetters were chosen because they represent an image in the ever-changing fashion scene. Lord Patrick Lichfield, for example, the aristocratic photographer who happened to defy the convention of nobility by actually working for a living. And there's Marie Helvin, currently the world's #1 photographic model, not remotely unconnected with the fact that she lives with David Bailey, the world's #1 photographer. And there's Simon Ward, the British actor who was chosen because he represents the image of the typical English gent. And lastly here, there's Chelsea Brown. 50 years ago, this auto bus lived and spluttered on the 529 route between Southgate and Victoria. It had ended its days ignominiously in a back garden where it was used as a tool shed. Today it's part of a fleet of veteran buses owned by one man. Prince Marshall has devoted his life to London buses. He's also founded a preservation society and has tried to catalogue every bus that's ever run in London over the past 50 years. What got you interested in buses anyway?
I really don't know. It was born in me. When I was very, very small boy in the early part of the war, the first toy I ever remember was a clockwork bus, and I worried and worried for this thing. And all through the war, I used to be obsessed by the idea of buses, like other people are obsessed by trains. Yeah, don't you find that Londoners today are they've got a lot on their mind, but just go along in this vehicle, in traffic, and actually you see people's faces light up. That's wonderful.
It's believed that practically every tourist who visits London takes at least one stroll down Oxford Street. This is the world they see, the shops and the push and shove of too many humans struggling for room to walk. But their feet pass over a secret world which runs beneath the street. This firm of wine merchants sells over 50,000 bottles of wine each year to a particular type of customer, and that's over 8,000 gallons. Now, most popular of these wines, which are stored in hundreds of casks underneath Oxford Street, is a rich, full-blooded, red, fruity wine made from the sweet muscatel grape of Cyprus. So who is the customer who consumes so much? Well, this firm specialises in selling wine to the church. It's used as altar wine for the Holy Communion, and it's sold to individual priests and vicars, mainly by mail order. Even though only tiny amounts are consumed by each person during a church service, the wine must be meticulously checked to see it conforms with canon law. It must be only 15 degrees proof, except for the Royal Navy, who'll get it stronger. It shouldn't contain any artificial colouring or chemicals either, and there are other conditions as well.
One must, of course, take consideration for the types of denomination, the various types of denomination. I mean, both the Roman Catholics and the Church of England.
Yeah.
And, of course, those churches who, although they have communion, don't approve of alcohol.
Yeah. What do you do then? How do you get around that?
We supply them with non-alcoholic altar wine.
I see.
Very simple.
Do you ever get any sort of over-ordering at all, or anything like that?
Very rarely. I mean, I have one or two little small congregations way up in the north of Scotland somewhere who only order 12 bottles a year.
Yeah.
There are other people who will order as much as 25 gallons at a time.
Really?
This is depending entirely upon their congregation.
You'd hardly think it now, but once Oxford Street was a great place for a family outing. That was when they chopped off heads or stretched necks at two favourite execution spots, Tyburn at one end and here at St Giles Circus, where a great laugh was had by all on topping day, unless you were the star attraction. Well, the most celebrated notable to be executed here was one Sir John Oldcastle, who was put to death in 1417 for criticising the church and St Giles Hospital. Now, because the authorities at the hospital threw a party to celebrate his end, he placed a curse upon St Giles, and through the years the curse has lingered on. Churches here fell into decay faster than anywhere else, and during the 18th century, St Giles Rookery was the most infamous slum in London. Well, nowadays, guess what building happens to stand on the very spot where Sir John placed the curse? Mind you, other buildings in London have the same feeling about them as Centre Point. In Bayswater, you can walk down Linster Terrace and past a Swish hotel and wonder why no one is ever seen to enter or leave the two houses next door. You see, number 23 and number 24 Linster Gardens look strangely deserted. The windows are all boarded up. In fact, there's hardly any sign of life at all. And no wonder. 110 years ago, the houses were knocked down to accommodate the Paddington to Bayswater tube trains, and then they had to rebuild the front to preserve the appearance of the street. They've kept preserving it ever since. Every few years, a property company and London Transport must paint and repair the front of two houses which simply don't exist. In fact, the whole facade is so convincing that very few people know about the mystery of these houses, including the milkman. This monument, standing 202 feet high, is a memorial to the most destructive burnt oven in British history. It commemorates the site of a baker's shop in Pudding Lane, where the Great Fire of London started in 1666. Well, the carelessness of the unknown clot who caused it actually did London a favour. It cleared away the rat-infested streets and the hovels and enabled the city to rise again. It's still rising. Today, the monument, with its summit, encircled by a cage to stop people jumping off, is still an important landmark. And for us, it's the gateway to the East End. Whitechapel Road. The Romans built it originally. Today it cuts through what was once the poorest part of London and where the Salvation Army was founded just over 100 years ago. This is Fieldgate Street, where Booth first published the war cry in 1879. His Christian evangelists still find down here that there's great need for their charity, but the emphasis on their religious message has changed somewhat through the years. In fact, there's been a takeover. Thousands of Muslims now live in the East End, and every Friday, their Sabbath, they pack the outside of their prefabricated mosque, which is wedged between a synagogue and a dossers' hostel. The majority of these people immigrated from Pakistan, the Middle East and Africa. Yet inside is another Muslim who's a little different from the rest. Miriam came from Tiger Bay in Cardiff. Miriam Hajan is known locally as the Muslim Mama of Whitechapel. She married a holy man when she lived in Wales and he was a Pakistani immigrant. She changed her religion and now works at the local mosque. She's also helped to bridge the many differences which exist between the Asian community and the local East Enders.
You know, when you get to know them, they all love you and respect you, and there's nobody passes me by in the street. Hello, Begum. Begum, they call me, you see. That Begum is lady, you know. But, and if they're in trouble, they come and knock my door, my private house, and if I can sort things out for them, I will.
Hackney is one of the ancient boroughs of London. And this is the town hall. It's a Saturday, and therefore his worship the mayor is very much in demand. He must fulfill many public engagements on Saturdays, so the mayoral limousine arrives outside his worship's house. There's a bowling match for the mayor to visit today. And round here, no function would be complete without Councillor Arthur Super and his wife, the Lady Mayoress, complete with their chains of office. Mind you, for the official chauffeur, George, things haven't been quite the same on Saturdays since Arthur Super became the Mayor of Hackney. The chains of office ride in state with George. The Mayor and his missus fall in neatly behind. Councillor and Mrs. Super are Jewish and very orthodox too. Saturday is the Jewish Sabbath, and their religion forbids them to ride in a car on the Sabbath. So when he attends official functions on a Saturday, the mayoral couple walk. George carries the chains in the car to prevent them being nicked on the way.
The point is that we are told to work 6 days a week and to rest on the Sabbath day. And resting on the Sabbath day means not riding, not carrying things, not riding. I want to emphasize, I don't consider myself any better than any other Jews or anybody else in the country. But this is part of my way of life, and I see no reason to change it simply because I happen to be mayor of the London Borough of Hackney at the present time.
How do you feel about it? I mean, walking, you know, to all the functions.
I'm used to it. Well, if he walks a long way, say 2 or 3 miles, I don't go with.
Don't you?
No.
I don't blame you.
This is not far from my house, so
yeah.
I walk with him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't.
Councillor Super reckons that by the time his year in office is over, he'll have walked about 150 miles to functions in the Hackney area, and he even intends to raise money for charity by being sponsored on his way. Hackney itself is the real East End, and that is the famous Hackney Empire. It's a bingo hall now, but I'm sure that many of you older folks will remember the days when artists like Ernie Lottinger, Max Miller and Gracie Fields topped the bill there. Well, just round the corner from the old Empire is a small, unobtrusive alleyway. Most people would pass Hackney Grove by, but for many elderly people in this borough, a house down that alleyway is becoming one of the centre points in their lives.
Hello, Friends Anonymous Service here. Can I help you?
This is the headquarters of a Samaritan organisation which aims to augment the borough of Hackney's normal social services.
Oh, yes, I know it. It's E9, isn't it? Now, have you contacted your social services?
Did you get something done about the loop?
No, they haven't done anything about it.
This woman is chronically disabled with sclerosis. She's confined to a wheelchair and can rarely leave her home. But when she's brought here, she can chat about her problems and ask for help if she wants.
Oh, no, she likes sitting around.
It's all run by volunteers, and they're not professionals either. Charlie Brockington is an ordinary East End housewife who helped to set up the organisation when she realised the distress among some of her neighbours in Hackney.
Well, there was a lady found dead over the Christmas time. Was dead in the flat for about 3 days, and then we suddenly thought, well, out of all of it, people should be looked after and seen to, and right from that very time we started out from that, caring for old people, and now we've gone young, old, children, everything.
You get very distressed people ringing you up
Oh,
too, don't
yes, especially with elderly people, great depression, living on their own. Loneliness is really the biggest problem. All together.
One way of keeping in touch is Charlie's weekly get-together for pensioners. A cup of tea, a chat and a sing-song, and old folks conquer their loneliness for just a few hours. And for them, moments like this are the crowning point of the week. From the east end of Hackney and across the river from Whitechapel, and in the early hours of the morning to a market the public rarely sees. This is the Caledonian Antique Market. Each Friday, dealers from all over Britain congregate to trade items worth thousands of pounds. On open stalls, they display the junk our grannies threw away, the salvage from country homes. And at this time of the morning, the market is open for the men and women who buy and sell to buy and sell with each other. Here, during the half light, is when you're most likely to get a bargain. How much is this?
26.
£26? Yeah. Would you let me have it for what, 15?
Oh, you're joking?
This is all your gear, is it?
Yeah. Well, if it ain't, I've nicked it, you know what I mean?
Is it worth a lot of money?
I'm afraid so, Jack.
Roughly, what's all that
not
worth?
only Christmas presents.
What's all that worth, roughly?
Well, up to what we sold yesterday, about £1,500, £2,000.
Really? Yeah. Is it true that you can get things here cheaper than you can anywhere else? Because you're dealing with the trade.
Depends. It depends. If you know what you're doing of and you've
I've
got an eye and you've got an idea of what you're buying, you come down here and you're the first man in because it's early in the morning and you see the stock before anybody else.
What would have to pay for, say, that? I see.
There's a bleeding. You know, in China, in about 200 years ago, they made things for the English market, for English people who lived there.
How much would that cost
And this
me?
contained 2 knives, but they're gone.
What would
that would cost you about 28 quid.
Yeah. What, would you take £10 for it, would you?
I should go, Jack.
Go on, take £10 off me. At daybreak, the market proper begins. The public, many of them tourists, arrive to search and to haggle in this antique supermarket without realising that for the dealers, much of the real business of the day is over by breakfast time. Now London is waking up, and the famous landmarks of the city are on public view once more. A policeman surely must have a police station he can call his own. Yet not all of them have the glamour of Scotland Yard. In fact, some police stations are cunningly hidden from public view. This London bobby is checking in to the smallest nick in Britain. It was built into a concrete ornamentation of a certain square in London, which has become a favourite spot for demos, protests and general yahooing. Hence the need for a nick in the first place. This is Trafalgar Square, the last of the landmarks we're visiting in our journey through London. Trafalgar Square is, of course, one of the main tourist attractions in London, which would explain why there are so many fat, contented pigeons. But it's also right in the heart of the West End, at the gateway to London's Theatreland, which in a few hours' time will be alive with light and colour. The West End and the neon lights of London's Theatreland, where there are more places of entertainment in 1 square mile than anywhere else in Europe. There are shows on here which will run for years and be seen by hundreds of thousands of people, and one particular hit is packed out night after night. Jesus Christ, superstar. This evening, Jane Stockhill, aged 17 from Streatham, is treating herself to a seat for Jesus Christ Superstar. She's going with her sister Sue, who's 15, and 2 teenage friends, Carol Cooper and Mary Hembry. It's quite a thrill for the girls to come up west for the show. Mind you, they've all seen it before. In fact, between them, they've seen it 543 times before, just about once a week for the past 3 years. Jane's seen it 187 times and has sat through up to 4 shows a week. Carol's been 159 times, Sue 117, and Mary's a mere novice with a personal attendance record of 80. Tonight, like every night, when they go superstarring, the girls kick off the proceedings with a stakeout to greet the performers arriving at the stage door. They've been here so often that all the actors and actresses know them. They're almost part of the fittings.
How has it changed your life?
Completely. I mean, when I was 14, I can't remember exactly what I did with my spare time. Of just school and home. And now I have Superstar, which is where I go every weekend, and I've got a lot of friends. Because I met all my friends here. And it's just changed the whole way I live.
Like it gets inside you and it just overwhelms you completely. You live for Superstar and nothing else.
You still find a lot of these old businesses dotted in and around the City of London, and most of them haven't changed. I mean, take Reeson's, this draper's shop, for example. It really hasn't changed in the 70 years that it's been in business. For instance, they've opted out of the decimal system. Take their tea towels and their sheets and their tablecloths. They're still marked up in old money. Look, here's some sheets for £6, 7 and 6. That brings back a few memories. Or you can have a hand towel for 16 and 11 pence. There's a dressing set for 9 and 6. And if you want a toilet towel, well, that's 4 and 11 pence. Hello, Ivy. Now, tell me why. Why have you opted out of the decimal system?
Because it's our money. We were brought up on pounds, shillings and pence. This is nonsense, this decimal system. Does one realise that 10p is really 2 shillings? It's completely ridiculous. We've been brought up on this currency all our lives, and as far as we're concerned in this shop, we continue selling in our old, lovely money, and intend to do so.
Don't you have a slight problem, though? I mean,
there's no problem at all.
Well, you see in the window it says 4 and 11 pence.
And
now,
it's 4 and 11 pence.
Well, how do you work that out?
Well, what working does one have to do if there are any queries about it at all? There's the decimal board there. So, 5 shillings is 25p. So the customers want to spend 4 and 11 pence, and they get one tiny coin back for a penny.
Is it a sort of form of patriotism as well?
We're very patriotic. Good God, yes, I should say. We have been known all our lives as a country of small shopkeepers, and we hope to keep it that way.
The thing is, of course, that we Britons don't just stick to our traditions. We build monuments to remind us of them. In particular, we like monuments to remind us of our conquests in war. On returning to the last of our landmarks in this series, we're surrounded by statues dedicated to our conquering imperialism, yet even here there are some surprises to be found. For instance, the National Gallery was once known as the National Cruet Set because of its domes on the roof. How many people, I wonder, who come here to Trafalgar Square ever notice that empty plinth still awaiting its statue of a conquering general or a British hero? And sadly, this is where we're ending our brief exploration, to see some of the hidden places and to meet some of those offbeat people in this incredible city.